It's okay. You could all ask questions. Okay, so we began learning Siman Kuf Pei Gimel. Two words of Hakdama that maybe we should have spoken about beforehand, maybe we shouldn't have, is there's a Chsam Sefer, and everyone says it over B'Shem Rav Yashiv, just about learning halacha. They say it's more of a makar when you say B'Shem the Chsam Sefer. Then whenever the Chsam Sefer will learn even a Gemara, he would learn the Gemara with a mindset, what case comes out of this Gemara? What's the halacha that comes out of the Gemara? So when we're learning halacha, we have the liberty, we'll call it, of dreaming in the Gemaras as we take it from the Gemara all the way through the Naisei Kelim, all the way through the Piskei Halacha Zmanenu. And the truth is, today's shir is going to really focus on the Gemara that we learn well, the Gemara of Shmuel, the Gemara of Hargasha. We're not going to be able to go 100% into the Lamdis, because you saw that size of that Sidrei Taira, which was how long? Size of Africa? How long was that Sidrei Taira?
Long enough.
It was long enough that no one knows what he said. Okay, I agree with you. I'll be honest, I myself wasn't able to get through the whole thing, but it's a long Sidrei Taira. So that's the word of Hakdama. So the Gemara Niddah, I don't know if everyone saw I'm assuming you saw, there's a Rivash quoted by the Ramah, based on the Gemara Niddah Daf Lamed Aleph, that says, why do we have this whole invention of Nidus? Tanya Hayir Amir Ayman Imamar Tayir Nidil Shiva. This is the first Ramah. Why? Then they should ruggle ba v'katzba amra Tayra te timeya shiva yamim kidei shete chaviva al bailo kishas kinisasa lochopa. The first Ramah quotes the Rivash that says there's no difference between a penuya and a nisua. This Rivash is coming from the Gemara, because when you learn the Gemara sounds like that all of Hilchos Niddah is only for someone who's married. And believe it or not, what would come out if we think about what could come out of this Gemara? It's wild, because if a woman is not married, she's Tameya Niddah, but does she need Zayin Nikiyim? Does she have a din daraisa of a Niddah? Could she go to a mikvah and get rid of her din daraisa? So that's this first Rivash that's teaching us that there's no difference between Nisua and Penuya. Just to point out, there's a lot of raid that comes out of this Rivash. People saw the Rivash, right? This Ramah you all saw. The one line of the Ramah? The first line of the Ramah. The first Ramah. So I'm just getting blank stares. I'm trying to figure out what the blank stare is. So we'll get to the Hargasha point. I know that's what you all want to hear about. We're going to get there in a few minutes. But the real question is, can a woman who's in a penuya, can she go to the mikvah? Now she's not Isser Niddah Da'araisa. What would that save us? So there's many svarim that deal with this. There's let's quote some of the basic way. The Teres HaShlamim on the page, if you got a chance to see in Sivkot and Dalid, the Teres HaShlamim brings up the tzad that maybe a penuya will not have an Isser Niddah Da'araisa. And the big nafkamina is going to be whether we could allow a single girl to go to the mikvah and potentially to be together with someone because there's not going to be any Isser Niddah Da'araisa.
Would another nafkamina be if she touches, let's say, objects and stuff?
That would be an nafkamina, not nowadays. That would definitely be an nafkamina back with Zman Chazal, of course. What level of tumah she has.
Would that have been a much bigger nafkamina?
It could be, but we have to deal with what we're dealing with nowadays. We have to deal with Isser Niddah L'Baylo.
Why is it only deraisa though? If she went to the mikvah,
so she should be mutter, you're saying?
Why deraisa? Why are you saying only deraisa?
Why am I saying only gets rid of the deraisa? Very good. So there's a sefer that Ketzas Yitzchak, which brings down what you just said, and maybe she should be mutter gomer. So he says you can't forget that there's an Isser Yichud to every penuya, which was the Gezir of David HaMelech. So even if you're going to get rid of the Isser Niddah Da'araisa, l'chayra, anytime they're going to be together, there's going to be miyachid together. And if they're going to be miyachid together, certainly an Isser Niddah Da'rabanan. What's the big nafkamina going to be? The big nafkamina is going to be, are we allowed, and this is what Rav Avadia has a very, very lengthy tshuva and Yabia Omer discussing, are we allowed to say that we have, unfortunately, unfirm people, and unfortunately they're together, boys and girls, so maybe we should tell the girls, go to the mikveh at least, get rid of the daraisa, it's only going to be the dirabanan. And that's what the Teres HaShlamim would sound like he has a tzad. Now the Tiferes Yisrael comes along and he screams at the Teres HaShlamim and he writes the word Shigaga it's a mistake what the Teres HaShlamim wrote. How can you write such a thing, potentially that it's only going to be daraisa? This is Sidrei Taira quotes the Crazy Uplasi over here that he says that the Crazy Uplasi comments on the Teres HaShlamim, who by the way is the same person as the Minchas Yaakov, who says, the words he uses, Sheyatza chutz legidra geder chachamim litin michshol. He's putting a stumbling block, lepritze hadar, lechalik ben penuya nesua. How can you do such a thing? And of course, Ramesha, most notably in Yardei Chelik Dalasim Yudalid, comes along and he says, this Taras Hashamim loy nachin klal v'chas v'shalom lahalis ze aladas klal upashit ubarer. That of course we can't do this. So anyone who wanted to dream potentially of allowing such a thing, obviously is absolutely forbidden. We definitely will never let a penuya to go to the mikvah. Now,
what's the other side that she's automatically needed even if she goes to the mikvah?
the other, what do you mean? What's the Rivash teach us?
I mean,
She
what's
needs
the...
Anikim and stuff.
Again, the question is, the Gemara said the whole invention of Niddah is Kidei shetechavev isha labayla. So it sounds like there's no invention of Niddah if you're not married.
So then maybe she didn't become a Niddah then if she's not married.
So why do you even have to go to the mikveh?
Right, so
Right,
she's
what you're
mutter
asking?
lagamri then.
No,
Why does she even have to go to the mikveh?
she's
That's
definitely
what I know.
okay. Good. If we wanted to get involved, good. You're getting more significant. Good question. And this, if you want to see, this is really all, they all come from everywhere. I'm just jumping to the end because some people want to come from here and say, oh, maybe we can at least send them to the mikvah and get rid of this Niddah Daraisa. Maybe we can start playing with it because everyone's going to say that she's some level of a Niddah and she's okay. That's all I wanted to bring out over here. That's the basic grade. And just one last line I wanted to point out is that the Lashon Akedas Yitzchak, which as well, Rav Elchanan, there were some famous stories of Rav Elchanan with different Balei Tshuva that came and they wanted to know, and this is one of the big nafkaminas, what are we going to do with Balei Tshuva? If a Balei Tshuva wants to just go to the mikvah without Zayin Nikim, are we playing Derais, are we playing Derabanan, etc., etc. So Rav Elchanan said a line, he told the person, get out of here, Rav is not I can't let you go to the mikvah. And the Akedas Yitzchak over here says very similar Lashon, it's a chet gadol shenasa shloiber shos bezdin. Bezdin is not allowed to say such a thing. But famously, they say that Rav Elchanan, after this person left his house, he told his wife, go chase after them and tell them that she should go to the mikvah. Let her go to the mikvah. The Rav is not allowed to give such a psak, Rav Elchanan said, but the Rebbetzin could tell her at least, okay, that's just a little bit more. Al derech hakdama. Let's go weiter. We can spend the whole day on this. This is a lot of fun, but let's go weiter. I want to get into the meat and potatoes of the sugya, which of course is Hargasha and Hargasha Bisman Hazeh. You also the Shach, and the Shach already explains why we learned this whole siman. What does the Shach say? That everything over here, Niddah Ziva, this is the Yisoid, that's Nivna Alav Kol Hilchais Niddah. So anyone who wanted to say, what's the point? We just wasted a whole week of our life, Chas v'shalom, to say such a thing, but it's such a waste. What's Niddah Ziva? Okay, first of all, Beis HaMikdash will come, and we have to know Tumah V'Tayr, but that's what the Chavetz Chaim would answer, right? The Beis HaMikdash here it is. That's what Chavetz Chaim would answer. But regardless, we have to know this is the aside that everything is built upon. And now here is the massive nafkamina that comes out of our sugya. A question that unfortunately many people have made the following error in their life, and it's a dreadful calamity. And if you ever heard a Shavivim Shir start with this case, it's because there have been terrible stories. What's the case? If a woman does a bedika, again, we're diving all the way in, but you'll see how this comes from our sugya. If a woman does a bedika, and on the Eid bedika, on the bedika, she sees one dot of blood. So a unassuming chassan, married a few months, or maybe after first child, hasn't known what to do yet, says, it's one dot. I heard something about a sheer gris, size, I don't know, a penny, a nickel, a quarter, a dollar. Everyone gets everything confused. And it's one dot, and therefore she's tar. Now this is obviously a dreadful mistake. Why is this a horrible mistake? Our sugya is why it's a horrible mistake. Because we're learning the difference between ksamim, which we'll get to the next sugya, and niddah de'araisa. As you all learned, letame isha, there are multiple tanaim in order to make her tamei de'araisa. In order to make her tamei de'araisa, what are the conditions for a woman to be tamei de'araisa? Number one is the blood has to come me'amakar. Number two is it has to be the 5 colors of blood. And now, of course, everything I'm saying is never going to really be relevant because I'm telling you the 5 colors of blood, the chamisha minei damim. We know we're machmer in all colors. Number 3 is hargasha, and number 4 is it's metamik shatz lebeis achitzain. Number 5 is it can't be a chatzitza, which you didn't see yet. That's really going to come up. We mentioned yesterday the famous tshuva of Shlomo Zalman. If you could put a tube inside the woman and let the blood come out, and that really comes from, if you want the Maramakim, I didn't tell you yesterday, it's in Kuf Peiches Sif Gimel. You'll see over there that if the dam doesn't come straight out, if the dam comes through something else, there's a tzad litahir. Those are the Tanoim, Litame, and Isha De'araisa. Those are Tanoim, Litame, and Isha De'araisa. So now, if If a woman does a bedika, let's play this out. If a woman does a bedika, why is she Tamei D'Oraisa? The answer is the Gemara that you all saw. Amar Shmuel, Podka Karkoilam v'Yashva Aleha, Umatzadam Tahira, Shenemar Bibisara Ad Shetargish Bibisara. Quotes the Shulchan Aruch and everyone else. What's one of the big Tanaim? Hargasha. One of the big Tanaim is Hargasha. Now, before we get to how a woman Bizman is that, whether she does or yes or no have Hargasha, we all know that the Gemara said very clearly, the Gemara on Nun Zayin Amid Beis, that what happens when you do a bedika, there's a suffix Argasha, Dilma Argasha Velava Daite. Therefore, any time a woman does a bedika, forget all Haintegarade, forget all questions nowadays. She does feel, she doesn't feel. The bedika was the same for the last 5,000 years. It never changed. You took a white cloth, you put it on, you go up, you do a twist. We'll get exactly how you do that eventually. But if now there's a dot of blood on there, what is that? That's a suffix de'oraisa. Why is that a suffix de'oraisa? Because maybe she felt a hargasha, and she just doesn't know that. Why not? The simplest explanation, as we explained, is because maybe the feeling of the bedika was masking the hargasha. Masking the hargasha. Now, I'm going to throw out the question, which I'm not going to come back to answer. I don't know anyone that really answers this question. We're eventually going to discuss, nowadays women don't feel anything, right? So why, when she does a bedika, we're suspectful, maybe at that moment she had hargasha, she doesn't feel it, why are we more chayshish than at any other time of the day? Because that's the case of the Gemara Ashkayach. So there we nailed the Gemara. But any time she sees a dot of blood in her underwear, why don't we have the same chash? Maybe loy hargasha because she doesn't feel anything. So why isn't everything a suffix d'oraisa? Now that question, the way I just asked it, I do not know of an answer. Many Svarim, Magidei Shiurim, you could spend hours and days going into the sugya and trying to come up with a good mahalach. I saw that they wrote, the person who writes Ray Berkowitz's Svarim, it's called Zara Shmuel. So he writes over there that he brought up this question, V'tzarech Ian, and he was Meirach on in the Shiurim. So we're not going to be Meirach on the Shiurim, but everyone just realize it is a good question. Now, I didn't yet deal with, and maybe we'll understand the question better when I deal with how we deal with our gushes, Bizman Hazeh. I didn't deal with that yet. But number one is, when you do a bedika, it's a suffix daraisa. Why is it a suffix daraisa? Dilma argish of lava daiti. And therefore, because it's a suffix daraisa, if there's going to be one teensy dot of blood on that bedika cloth, it's over. It's finished. Why is it over? Because if there was a hargasha, now one dot of blood, there's no shear. The Shulchan Aruch said the size of a chardal, a mustard seed, which sounds like it has to be at least whatever a mustard seed size. You also the shach. I think you already all commented it's a tur. I think it's other rishenim as well. That it's even a mashu, even one dot of blood. So that's the reason why no one.
The hargasha itself, though, can also be mitame. Why do we need the?
That could be, but she didn't feel anything. There's
a suffix that she felt something.
Correct, and that's why she's tamei. Now you need to have blood. Now, you're asking what if? One second, good. You're asking what if there's a hargasha without dam? That's going to be a large sugya. That's only going to be if there is a hargasha. You're taking sveikus on sveikus. We don't actually have the hargasha.
No, but there was a hargasha, but
good. So when we get to that sugya, you'll see more. That it's only if there was a positive hargasha. Then you need to see if there's dam. And then you might be right. If you find nothing, maybe she will be tamei. At least bisman hashulchan aruch, she would have been tamei. Nowadays, we have to deal with that question. What happens? But if there's a dam, anytime there's dam on a bedika cloth, is the case I'm talking about. I'll go into the next case in a moment. Dika is the easiest case because nothing changed in bedika cloth.
But there, the suffix is that maybe while she was checking,
correct.
Why would you assume that if she didn't do anything that she didn't feel hargasha? That's going to be totally in what hargasha is.
Good. So let's get to hargasha. Good. I understand your question. Let's get to the hargasha. We'll see if it's a valid question. I would just bring that up because a lot of people, that question really blocks them from going weiter in the sugya. Because you learn the Gemara, and the Gemara says maybe there was hargasha when they did the bedika. Maybe there's always hargasha because we don't ever feel anything. So let's get there. We're going to get there. We're going to get there right now. So now you learned the Gemara. We all learned Rashi. Then we learned Tosfos. And we saw something funny is going on over here. What exactly is Rashi teaching us? This Rashi is a bomb. How to learn up this Rashi? It starts, if you want to go in the world of Rishonim, there's a Tosfos Rid. But most notably, there's a Sidrei Taira. That Sidrei Taira explains this Rashi, and that Sidrei Taira famously says a massive yisoid of Hargasha based on that Rashi, which, if in case you want to know if it goes to halacha l'maisa, Rav Eliyashiv was chayshish for this halacha l'maisa. What is that? We'll ask it in the world of yeshivish. What is Hargasha? Is Hargasha a siman or is Hargasha a siba? But she checks the ground and she sits in and she sees dam with Hargasha. Is the fact that she felt the dam a siba, which I think is probably the way that you learn the Shulchan Aruch, right? It's a tanai. You need to have the feeling to be tamei daraisa. Or is it a siman? No. The way that you know that the dam is from you is with Hargasha. Now, we shouldn't take sides because the Sidrei Taira at least says there's a machlekes rishonim. He says the way that he learns up this Rashi, this whole Rashi, and the commenting on Rav Ashi, the whole Rashi is Rav Ashi arguing on Shmuel. Shmuel said Hargasha. Rav Ashi seemingly said no Hargasha. You saw Taisus is Kasha. How exactly to learn up Rashi? So the Sidrei Taira and the Taisus read, also Taisus read, but we're just going to know the Sidrei Taira who speaks it out most explicitly, comes along and says it is a siman. And therefore, if you know for sure the dam came from a woman, I'm not talking anymore about a bedika. I'm talking about you know the dam came from the woman. How do you know the dam came from a woman? Well, nowadays it's very simple. She's wearing a pair of underwear. Where else did the dam come from? You know the dam came from the woman, says the Sidrei Taira, based on Rashi. We're chayshish for a deraisa. Because the only reason you need Hargasha is to show us where the dam came from. But if you know where the dam came from, what's your problem? This was one of the big reasons why Rav Eliyashiv famously held, and I'll read you his words from Kovitz Tshuvas. Kovitz Tshuvas were Tshuvas written by Rav Eliyashiv's pen. Just to give you the little bit of the background, Rav Eliyashiv didn't publish Kovitz Tshuvas. Rav Moshe Feinstein published Igros Moshe. He took the Tshuvas and he put them in the Igros, which is the reason why there's different levels of veracity, different levels of credibility based on the first 7 volumes that Rav Moshe put out B'chayav, and the latter volumes. Basically, number one is Rav Moshe took the tshuva and put it in. Sometimes a place can write a tshuva and he might not feel it's necessary or it's the correct mahalik for Gans Klal Yisrael. Just because you wrote it, it's right, but doesn't mean, as Rav Moshe famously writes in the tshuva, that they wanted to ask Rav Moshe, can we write a kitzer Igros Moshe? Rav Moshe says, no way. The reason I wrote tshuvas is because you learn based on how I paskind, how to paskin. Not just the psak halacha, because not every case is the same. So you have to see the whole sugya, the whole binyan, the whole build-up that Rav Moshe quotes. So Kovitz Tshuvas was written by Rav Eliyashiv's pen, but again, he did not himself publish it. That's just a little bit of the background. But this is famous. This is Rav Eliyashiv. This is Rav Eliyashiv. I'll just read you his words. Says Rav Eliyashiv, Im kain b'isha asama tachleishes alei samakam, which we'll just call a pair of underwear, a pad, whatever it is. Lisvayis afrashes, to gather up collect afrashes, whatever's coming out of her. V'nimsa dam, and he found blood. Since you know that blood came from her body. Don't tell me, wait, she didn't feel it. She never feels it. Our women tell us, Ein margishas klal. Yesh ladon, says Rav Eliyashiv. Shein b'mikra hazeh hakula shel ksamim. Says Rav Eliyashiv, this is not a kesem. This is a suffix de oraisa. Now, what do you do?
Why is it a suffix?
Because, what do you mean, why is it suffix de oraisa?
No came from her body.
Because again,
the
if...
is only a siman though.
So you're saying it's a vada deraisa.
Yeah.
It's a vada deraisa. So to go that far, no one's going to say. But what Rav Eliyashiv did say is, meaning no one's going to say that she's going to be tamei. No one's going to be tamei. I mean, maybe if you go back, but what Rav Eliyashiv used to say is she has to do a bedika.
So this thing is ksam according to them.
Good. So then we have to understand now, what did Rav Eliyashiv learn is ksam? Is there no ksamim nowadays? And this is one of the big kashas of Rav Eliyashiv. Kimat kol paiskei zmanenu. I don't want to say it that way, but Roiv paiskei zmanenu argue in Rav Eliyashiv, and they take on another mahalach, and they definitely don't go with the Sidrei Taira. But just to realize there is, and this was the reason why Rav Eliyashiv learned ksamim with a very, very heavy hand. Probably the easiest way to say it is, Rav Eliyashiv didn't go 100% with the Sidrei Taira that it's a siman. He was chayshish for the Sidrei Taira that it's a siman, and therefore he's always going to be chash da'araisa. It's always going to be chash da'araisa. You have to deal with it. Whereas we're going to learn eventually, we're going to get up to ksamim soon, we're going to say, wait, where did that dot of blood fall? It fell on something colorful, koltov, don't worry about it. Rav Eliyashiv will say, what do you mean? You have a pair of underwear. I don't care that it's blue. I see something on it. I know it came from her. It's a suffix da'araisa. So what do you have to do? Do a bidika. That's what I should say. I personally heard this from Rav Asher Weiss's mouth himself, even though Rav Asher Weiss definitely has many, many kulas. Kollel I was learning came in and gave a shir. And when he discussed this shaila, the shaila of a large kesem, which again, we're just bringing out the sad daraisa today, right? We're really not addressing the shaila. The real addressing of the shaila is going to be in the whole ksamim. But we're just bringing out that it's a safik daraisa l'chayra according to the Sidrei Taira. Rav Asher Weiss said, what's the psak halacha? He said, "Shtaitin ovois have irot min avayra." You have to do bedika. Paskin from Mishnah Yavs. Oh, because once you do bedika, what's going to happen? Shkayach, you're going to find dominant. Then she's going to be tummy. Because then we're going to know it came from her. Then we're going to know it came from her.
We know it came from her already.
No. Then there's not going to be the sad anymore. Now, again. Now there is no hargasha. If you do a bedika, then you have a safik hargasha, then you have tam that came from her, and therefore she's going to be tam. You might be asking another question.
Lefi this, what was it, the Sidrei Torah?
Yeah.
If we said, before this, if a woman does a bedika, there's a chashasha, maybe there was, I don't even need the chashasha, maybe there was a hargasha. If she did a bedika and there's blood, I know where the blood came from.
Good also. You're asking a question.
Yeah.
Saying, how does Rashi learn the whole Gemara?
How's he learn
good.
That
all very good questions. And since you saw a little bit of the sugya, and you saw that, one second, there was Shmuel, and there was Rav Ashi. Is Rav Ashi arguing on Shmuel? Is he being moisef on Shmuel? Are we passing like Rav Ashi? What exactly is happening over here? This is the sugya, and you're all asking excellent questions. And this is the reason why the Sidrei Taira is Meirich, pages and pages and pages and pages. All I am bringing out from here, yeah?
Why according to Rabbi Yashiv is he saying about it's down coming from her when it's coming out something colored, even though it's one of the 5 shades?
Good. So that's a new question. That's a new question. That's a new question. Which when we learn colored garments, we have to figure that out. Maybe that's a question. Maybe it's not a question. So say it's on something white. Good. Say it's on a pair of white underwear, and there's one dot of blood, which we all know 1 dot of blood on a pair of white underwear is fine. So according to Rabbi Yashiv, it's not fine. He would tell you to do a bedika, which we're going to get to. Again, we're not really addressing this 100%. What's your problem?
White is fine.
1 dot. The pachis make a gris because it's a kesem. Good. So now let's go. Good. Let's shift from the Sidrei Taira. Let's shift from Rashi. Let's go now into the Ramban, the Rashba, and Kol Arishainim that argue in Rashi. I'm going to speak out right now what you're asking. Everyone argues in Rashi. And how do they learn the Gemara? As you all saw on Taisvis, they all learn that's not the right way of learning the Gemara. And Avada, we're not falling off Hargasha. And of course, Hargasha is a Tanai. And of course, Hargasha is a Siba. And of course, that Hargasha, she's Tahar. What is Ksamim? New rules of Tuma Dirabanan. There's going to be a new thing called Tuma Dirabanan, a new thing called Ksamim, with the rules of Ksamim. You also saw the Gemara, whether it can be Makabal Tuma, not Makabal Tuma, that gets into the rules of Ksamim. So just to, for one moment, mention the rules of Ksamim, which we're going to see, the case I just mentioned, if it's a dot of blood on a pair of white underwear, so then, even though we know it came from her body, because there is no Hargasha, we're going to say it's not a din daraisa. It's going to have the rules of ksamim. What are the rules of the ksamim? The first rule of ksamim is it has to be a sheer gris. Now, the problem with what I'm saying, just to bring up, and again, a lot in this sheer, I apologize, there's going to be a lot of open-ended items that we're bringing up, because that's just the way it works. Because as you learn Kuf Gimel, you can learn Kuf Sadi, and then everything will slowly become clear. I'll just bring up the shayla. If you understand, then great. So there's a dot of blood on her underwear. So it's a kesem. So if it's less than a gris, she's tahar. But there's blood that came from her. Why is she tahar?
No Hargasha.
So what? So she's Tami Derabanan.
It's not enough to be Makabal Tuma.
Oh, good. It is Makabal Tuma. The garment is Makabal Tuma. So the answer is one of the conditions I just said is it has to be a gris. There's a size. But now, why is there a size of gris? If anyone remembers the Gemara, it's because if it's not that size, we could say it came from a bug. It came from something else, blood from anywhere else. But wait, we just said it's Vade Megufa. We just said it 100% came from her. It's on her underwear. How do we reconcile these two things? That's a good question. When we get to Ksamim,
that wouldn't be a problem for Zainikim either then?
We're gonna have to do it. Halach lamaisa, no. Halacha l'maisa, if it's pachas making gris, we're going to be makel. Now, why? It seemingly we're asking a very good question. We're going to have to deal with when we learn some extensively. But for now, we're focusing on the Hargashos aspect. We paskin the Chasam Sofer, the Niddah Yehuda, the Hargashos. I'll read you the words of the Hargashos. He's the easiest to understand. There's a gadol who wanted to make chadushim. Sharashi's al loisaver kin. V'gamar tzanalemer. Shgamar taisav's cholkin. Was that ve'ein b'chol davar shom yisoid. Says Hargashos. Calm down. You can't make lasses machlekes chadasha bin a paiskim, but davar shlishiarim kol rabbi yiseinu. He's obviously yelling at the Sidrei Torah over here and other paiskim. He's not yelling Rabbi Yashav, he's prior. Davar ze ikar gadol chaldini niddah l'chein achra levar zeh. So the Hargashos. So too says Rav Moshe Feinstein. Barer shabadam akesem migufa shaloi b'hargasha. She's tahar midde oraisa. So only dealing with the deraisa level. If there's no hargasha nowadays, she's tahar midde oraisa. Is she tami midirabanan? That's kosadi, that's ksamim, and now we have to deal with. I already brought up one of the shaylas. We're going to have to deal with this question. The same question that we're dealing with today. It's vadi migufa. Why not? We're going to have to deal with in the rules in the world of ksamim. Today we're dealing with on the daraisa level, on the hargasha level. So now, tachlis. Let's go. So what is hargasha? And what's going on with the woman nowadays? And is woman ever going to be tami daraisa?
How would it be din deraisa if it's a siba?
If it's a what is the question?
If it's a siba, if Hargashos is a siba, how could that change it din deraisa?
No, hagufa. If it's a siba, then it's a tanai, and then the hagufa. The other way, the good question. If it's just a siman, how can you change that? Okay. So what's hargasha? You all saw, I think, 3, maybe 4. I don't know if you saw all 4. There's psichas bia makar, which is the original makar is the Chumas Hadeshin, quoted by the Mechaber. There is the Niddah Yehuda, the Rambam, which is Nizazea Kol Gufay, Nizazea Kol Gufay, just to bring out Nizazea Kol Gufay. What does that mean? It means her body shakes. So you're saying, yeah, okay. The Gemara says, the Gemara on Daf Gimel teaches us, what does it mean her body shakes? She wakes up from the feeling. Just to bring out the strength of what we're talking about. We're not talking about a little stomach cramp. Her body's shaking, it's waking her up from the sleep, says the Gemara. That's what the Gemara says. That's Nizazea Kol Gufay. That is, the Makar is the Rambam, of course, that's quoted by the Mechaber, not over here, that's quoted by the Mechaber in Kov Sadi Aleph. And then we have the Niddah Yehuda, which you also quoted in the. Then we have what's next. You also Pislei Chup. No, you didn't see that Pislei Chup. So let's go in order. You also the Niddah Yehuda, which is Psichas Pia Makar, the opening of the Makar. Now, if you're wondering how you're feeling the opening of an internal organ, just to bring out what Hargasha is. Good. And finally is the Chasam Sofer quoted in the Pislei Chup, not here, but in Siman Kof Sadin, which is Zivas. Tsar ke'ein ki'itzat mei raglayim. Whether this is 2, whether it's 1, she feels as if she has to use the bathroom. Well, exactly is this 2 things. Is a 1 is psichas bia makar, the feeling of using the bathroom. Is it not? Is that? And then of course is zivas davar lach. Now zivas davar lach. What is zivas davar lach? So I think you already all saw. It's mi bifnim. It's mi bifnim, which is an internal flow. And if you were wondering, there are places that say it's mi bachotz. But it's not, just to speak out, the mitzias. If a woman says, yeah, I felt the dam coming out of me. So if you ask her to be precise in what she's feeling, she's not feeling the dam coming out of her. She's feeling the wetness of the blood outside her body. She's not actually feeling the blood flowing out. It's 2 totally different things. 2 totally different things. So that is the hargashas that we found. Now, before we get into women nowadays, what about stomach cramps? Which many women, of course, will feel, or headaches, or things like that. So that already, that's called a vestes haguf, that she feels something going on in her body. So there are those that are machmir, there's Ramshik, a part of Humanim that are machmir. The pashtus is that it is not hargasha, as you just saw. That's not one of the 4 hargashas. The Hargashos speaks that explicitly. Rabbi Yashav the Chachani says very simply, we'll just read what he says. And she feels bepi karisa, she feels her stomach. That is not a hargasha. So, tachlis. So why is a woman tamei daraisa? Based on everything we just said. We said that we're going with Taisus and the Ramban and the Rashba, and we're going with the Hargashos and Ramosha. That Hargasha is a Siba. That you need to feel the Hargasha. So Shkoyach that she sees Dam, Shkoyach that she's having her period, but she didn't feel it. She didn't feel it. Why don't we say that it's not going to be Niddah Daraisa? It's going to be Niddah Darabanan. And I don't know, maybe we can start playing around. Maybe a woman could wear a colored pad, we'll call it, just to make things simple. And all the dam is going to come straight onto Sivainim, onto something colorful, and she'll never become a Niddah. Is that possible? So you all know no. You all know obviously it's not possible. Question is why not? So there's multiple mahalchim. None of the mahalchim everyone here is going to love, because that's just the way that it works when you see everything inside. To connect what's going on is difficult. I'll read you some of the lashonis of the poskim to give you a little bit of a feeling. So the who should we start with? Let's start with the Hargashos. Let's start with the Hargashos. The Hargashos over here in Kuf Begimel, Siv Mem Aleph, Siv Samach Aleph, and Siv Samach Beis. It is actually something that you'd enjoy seeing afterwards. Says the Hargashos. He asked women who are experts for Amru Loi, Tivis Yesh Mehen Shemargish Psichos B'Yamakar. There were women that told the Hargashos, it's not the Hargashos, he's quoting one of the Chuvas, he's quoting the Marshach, that said, yes, we feel Psichos B'Yamakar. V'yesh Men She'einu Margish B'Hargashazu Rak, and some of them only feel the Zivas Dam Niddah. But they all feel something. That was a big tshuva sefer wrote that the women feel things. Says Hargashos, Hevel yipotze pia nashim ha'ele v'lo yadi ma'ika amri. They don't know what they're talking about. V'rabosinu nemanu leinu yoiser, man, we believe Rabbanim more than them. V'gameinu me'shakros b'dvarim el she'einon mevinos. V'da'at echol davar mutar shebagov shagov sarach letzasam. Okay, everything you need to be able to feel, the tivy that Kadosh Baruch Hu. What?
What does it mean we believe they're a
Oh, so which way?
What do their Baron know?
Meaning what? What's your question?
Women don't feel anything. They're telling us they feel something.
Good. See, you should know. This is like, if you speak to some elder rabbanim, they'll say like, we've spoken to many women, and they none of them know what they're talking about. What do you mean they don't know what they're talking about? They said they feel it. No, they don't. They say Rav Morgenstern, one of the Yashin's big talmidim. He says any woman that says she has Hargasha, talk to her enough, and you realize that she doesn't know what she's talking about. Okay, good, valid question. Let's just start. That's the Hargashos. Comes along Ramosh. Now, again, your question is not really relevant because we all know whether we find in a tshuva sefer where it says women feel it. L'maisa, all the contemporary modern day Sfarim write that like 98 or 99% of women don't actually feel any of the Hargashos that we spoke about. All they're going to feel is they're going to feel stomach cramps, they're going to feel headaches, and they're going to feel wetness outside their body. So the Hargashos is talking to the 1% of women that claim they do. Just to minimize and zone in on exactly our conversation. Good.
Let's say they feel a Hargasha and then they have their period and it happens the Chazaka, right? So even though the Hargasha is not one of the Hargashas that's listed.
Again, what do you mean they feel
Hargasha? They have
Hargasha?
Hargasha, they feel cramps and then they have their period.
Good. So that's something else. That we have to deal with. That's something to deal with. That's you're asking about a vest. You ask that maybe that's going to call the vest as a gof. That maybe it's something showing the period's coming. It's not Hargasha. That's what we're bringing out today. We're in the world of the Torah today. We're in the world of the Reisa. Comes along Ramosha, and Ramosha writes, the baker is in Chilat Sim Yudzayin. Im yish nashim she'in lem hargasha b'tzias dam nida. Nashim she'in lem shum hargasha b'tzias adamim hu davar sheloi matzi klal. Here Ramosha is saying, a woman to not have hargasha is not common. Ramosha, but gam she'in mevinos, and they don't know what they're talking about. Hu ein matzi klal. Tahare, listen what Ramosha says. It's like fascinating. This is not that long ago. Tahare chazinon di yoidois. They know, listen to these words, B'diyuk Mosai Naase Nidos. They know precisely when they're becoming a Niddah.
That doesn't mean they feel
slow. Good question. Ramosha just jumped. He started off saying, to say that they don't have Hargasha is crazy. Why? Because they know for sure when they're becoming a Niddah. Ramosha, you just took a leap of faith. Good, very, very good question. Very good questions. So he continues, and maybe he's addressing this. What do they not know? They don't know what they're feeling. Okay, interesting. They feel sick. But we just said feeling sick is not enough. So Interesting. Ramosha seems to be learning every woman Bisman Hazeh is in Niddah D'Oraisa. Why? Because since they know when they're becoming a Niddah Bivadai, that means that they're feeling it. They just don't know what they're feeling. To maybe, again, there are those who make very minor nuances in different Mahalcha. I just want to drive us to get to a place that we can understand. It's Shevet HaLevi. I want to read you this. I want to read the Shevet HaLevi. The Shevet HaLevi, I think we can understand them the best. Bisman Hazeh shaharbei nechlishu achushim. Our chushim, our sensitivities, our feelings are weakened. Va'atzvonos v'timoin shchichi me'oid. It's impossible to believe they don't feel anything at all. Because if since the nature of the creation is there is Hargasha, they don't feel it. These are the words. The way to understand the Shevet HaLevi is we all know that someone Rahman al-San who's blind has a heightened sensitivity of hearing. And someone that's deaf has a heightened sensitivity of touch. What's pshat? What does that mean? They have a heightened sensitivity. We're all the same human beings. The answer is that they train their bodies. Well, this is, I guess, the simplest scientific explanation. That they train their bodies to use different senses. So the Shevet HaLevi is teaching us is that really women do feel, and maybe if we had a woman that was sitting in a perfectly dark, perfectly still room from the time before her period comes to when her period actually comes. Maybe if she sat there fully concentrating, according to Shevet HaLevi, she would actually feel something. But because of what's going on in the world around us, they don't feel it. So this explanation, Shevet HaLevi, does Rav Moshe mean this or not? I don't know. But putting everything that we're seeing here together, we could come on to a very, and maybe this is even what Hargashos meant, that they're not bekeen in what they're feeling. Again, you could make minor nuances. You go through the Lashonos very properly, but to give a basic overview of how we approach Nashim Bisman Hazeh, which if you open up any of the Kitzur's farm, any single one, from the Marakayin to the every single one. I'm not going to give names; it's irrelevant. All the Kitzur's farm. What are they all going to start off with? Women nowadays, when they see their flow, when they see their period, important words, and I'll explain that in a moment. That is when their Niddah is D'Oraisa. Now. Why? Now there's different nuschais, different ways of saying it. The way, in my feeble mind, what makes the most sense to me is Al Derech L'Shevet HaLevi. Maybe this is what Ramosha means, maybe not. That Avada, there is that feeling happening in their body. So, I'll give a mashal in a moment. They don't feel what they're feeling. Now, it's a little bit difficult to say because a feeling you have to feel, because if you don't feel it, it's not a feeling. Good question. But maybe what it means is similar to we saw about B'dikas Eid. That when you're doing a bedika, why? And maybe this could potentially answer the question from before, and maybe that's why you didn't understand the question. When you're doing a bedika, why is it a chashash de'oraisa? Because maybe at the moment you did the bedika, what's happening? At that moment, at that moment you have Hargasha. But you didn't feel it. Why didn't you feel it? Because you felt the aid. So now put that into general women nowadays, because of what's going on and because of their lack of attunement to their, I don't know if that's a word, lack of, is that a word? No clue?
Sounds like a word.
Sounds nice, right? Yeah. Lack of focus on what's going on in their body. They don't necessarily know what they are feeling. Some place can want to say, just like a man, when you use the bathroom and you urinate, that first feeling, you feel the urine coming out. Now, I'll be honest, after I learned this many times, I went to the toilet and really tried. And I can't say I ever got there. I don't really understand what that means. But there are svarim, they're right, yeah, just like men, when they urinate, avada, you feel that first dot coming out. That's I have no clue. I just don't know. Maybe people do. Maybe I just don't have sensitivities. But I understand it with the Shevet HaLevi. Now, why did I say it's only when there's a quantity of blood? Now, this is an important detail, and this is basically how we're going to finish today, and then we'll just wrap everything up. Because if there's not a quantity of blood, and there's only one dot of blood, so why should we assume that this is a regular period? Again, let's retranslate what women are. Bisman Chazal, there was something called a Hargasha, a real Hargasha. So anytime there's one dot of blood, she had Hargasha D'Oraisa. No Hargasha, then go into Ksamim. She did a Bedika, or she used the bathroom, maybe if we have time to speak about, then D'Oraisa. If not, go into Rosh Hashanah. Nowadays, we said we don't have Hargashos. But we're explaining it's not that we don't have Hargashos. It's that maybe they're there, maybe they're not. So let's just go al derech to see they're there. It's just easier for our brains to understand. We're learning this. So again, there are Hargashos. She just doesn't feel it. But when? when she's becoming a Niddah, when she's having her proper flow. But if she's not having a proper flow, and let's say one dot of blood falls out, where's that going to fall out? That's going to fall into Ksamim. That's going to fall, because there's no reason to assume when one that dot came that there was potentially Hargash. Now this last detail is difficult. It's very, very difficult in Sugya where this came from. And this is where it came from. Many of the modern day raid, which when we see more Aksam, we'll understand this more. There, Moshe said $0.50 is a flow. $0.50 is a flow. Now, they say Rabbi Forrest writes in the footnote, Moshe never gave an actual shear. But I don't think there's a machlekes here. I think the point is, it's not $0.50. It's not measure. When it comes to a gris, as we're going to learn in Kufsadi, we're actually going to measure it. It's precise to the millimeter. What is a gris? $0.50 is not that is a flow. It's a feeling you have to figure out, and this is the hardest part of psak in Niddah. Not the hardest part. One of the hardest parts is figuring out what is a flow. What is a flow? Meaning what's red and what's not red. Okay, we're going to talk about that and figure it out from Messiahs, etc. But what is a flow? How much blood? How much blood? They say 3 fingers, $0.50. Well, because what we're trying to do is we're trying to figure out that this is the normal way that a woman sees, and once she's seeing like the normal way a woman sees, now she gets thrown into Kuf Gimel. That's what we're trying to do. And if it's not seeing the way the normal woman sees, she's not in Kuf Gimel anymore. Where is she? She's in Kuf Sadi. She's in Ksamim still. And this is the reason why spotting. Again, these are big sugis that we're going to come back to. But spotting, when a woman is, let's say, on birth control, is the easiest case. If you take birth control not at exactly the right time, why doctors don't tell you that? Because they don't care. Not that they don't care, but to a doctor in the secular world, it's irrelevant if a woman, they don't care if they spot, like what's the difference in their life. In our world, it's a big deal that they spot, and that's the reason why, if you ever wonder why we have such spotting issues, usually it's because women are not taking their birth control at exactly the right time. No, I did not just say birth control is right, it's wrong, I did not comment anything about birth control, and what it is, and the science, and any of that. We're going to get to everything. But I'm saying the mitzias, what happens when a woman is spotting, the difficulty is, what is that? What is it? So she has a medium-sized spot. It's so big. It's bigger than a gris, and maybe even fell on something white. But what is it? What exactly is it? Which we're going to have to deal with. But what we're trying to drive in today is when it comes to Hargashos, there is something called a Hargasha. There's something called a Hargasha, and that's the reason why the Siba, the reason to be Tameh on the Daraisa level, certainly exists when there is a proper flow. And we're just gonna end with, we said about a bedika, why that's a deraisa. So the same thing is when a woman uses the bathroom. Now we're gonna everything I keep on saying we're gonna come back to in Kufsadi, because we always have to now ask the question anytime we're saying it's not deraisa, but is she Tami Deraban? Every single question we always have to go there. So today we're learning on the deraisa level. But if a woman uses the bathroom and she wipes herself and she sees a dot of blood in there, oh, so now let's go in order. Wait, based on what we just had today, she should be Tame. Why? Hargasha is a Siba, just like when she did a Bedika, where Chesed says the Gemara, Dilma Argasha Valavadaite. Maybe there was the feeling of Hargasha, she just didn't feel it. Why did she not feel it? Because the Bedika masked the feeling, and therefore one dot makes her Tame. So if she uses the bathroom, and she wipes herself, and she sees a dot of blood, the same thing said the Gemara, right? Atalas meiraglayim. She used the bathroom, so maybe the feeling of using the bathroom masked the feeling of Hargasha, and now she should be Tame even on one dot. You done a piece of tissue, and maybe your tissue is not Makabal Tumah. Who cares? What's the difference? It's no relevance to us. Those rules of Makabal Tumah, of size and everything, that's all Kufsadi Dirabanan. In the rules of Deoraisa, she should be out.
Why do you need a flow? Why would you need a flow?
Because we have a Dilma Argisha. Because we're chayshish that the feeling of using the bathroom masked the Hargasha, and therefore she should be Tameh. Just like when she does a Bedika. The same way when she does a Bedika, the feeling of the Bedika might have covered over the Hargasha, and we're chayshish every Bedika for a Deraisa, and therefore one dot of red is Aser. So why is it the same thing when she uses the bathroom? So the answer to this question is, maybe it is. I'm going to jump all the way to Ramesha, all the way. Again, I say all the way is because when we learn more, and some will see more. But Ramesha speaks out, and you already saw this Merames in the Gemara, is when are we chayshed for a deraisa? Only when it's oisium. which means miyad, right away. But if it's not right away, then we're not choshed. Meaning, says Rav Moshe, if a woman uses the bathroom and she's rushing out of the bathroom, and then she wiped herself, which means in English, what just happened? She urinated, and this second later she wiped herself. Not even a second, right away. Let's say we're trying to prove this case exactly. Just like what's the bedika? That while you're doing the bedika, dot of blood falls in, and therefore we're choshed that the feeling of the bedika might have covered over the blood. So while she's urinating, perfect. As the urine's coming out, she wipes herself. So now the urine might have masked over the hargasha. That dot of red on the tissue, done. She's finished. She's aser. Says Rav Moshe, yeah, that's not the normal case. Because a woman, says Rav Moshe, unless there's a reason she's rushing out of the bathroom, says Rav Moshe, the baby's crying. There's a pot on the stove. The telephone's ringing. Geshmak, he actually says those words. Then maybe she's rushing, and then maybe we have to be choshed that it was right away. Says Rav Moshe, a normal scenario is you use the toilet and you wait a split second. The second, we'll see exactly the times. And that's enough time, says Rav Moshe, that now we're not in derace anymore. Now we're no longer have to be Dilma. We're no longer choshed. Because where the dam maybe come from. Very good. Good question. That's the same question we asked. Now you're asking on the derabanan, why isn't it still tummy? But you're not asking on the deraisa. You understand? On the deraisa, we're just answering why there's no hargasha. The reason there's no hargasha is because maybe there was hargasha when the urine came out. But now I wipe myself a second later. For example, let's say a woman doesn't go to the bathroom. She goes, she takes the tissue, and she wipes herself, and she sees blood on it. Madinoi. Is it the deraisa? No. Is there hargasha? No. What is it? We don't know yet. We're going to learn kofsadi, and we're going to learn about ksamim, and we're going to learn about this thing called the machiles, this thing called the bug, and when we could be toilet and not be toilet in, and then we're going to learn derabanan. Today we're only answering why there's no tumah deraisa. Now, Rav Elyashiv, as we mentioned, in that scenario, is very, very nervous. He's very nervous. Rav Elyashiv says we have to be choshed for deraisa. Choshed for deraisa. Why? Because we know where it came from. Rav Elyashiv says, do a bedika. Do a bedika. Rav Asher Weiss says, do a bedika. And that's one of the reasons why many people are taught to be extremely violently careful not to look at the toilet paper. Now, we all know in psychology when we tell everyone not to look, then what happens? You look. And that's the reason why when we get to Kafsadi, we'll explain better, probably, and this is not my psychological lumdus, but probably we're hurting the woman by telling them not to look. A normal, I don't call anyone normal, we already said in the world of meat, there's no such thing as normal, but a normal person, when they wipe themselves after the bathroom, doesn't look at the tissue. What are you doing exactly? Right? You don't have to be more graphic? I think we got it, right? But once we're like, I don't know. So probably if we didn't say anything to them, they wouldn't look. And now if they end up looking, mimanav shach, which we have to answer this question, it's going to be the same halacha. So the feeling maybe came from this world of Rav Elyashiv, maybe. Again, we're going to have to get there.
What was the bedika help according to Rav Elyashiv? Again,
the bedika helps to ascertain, because we have a shayla v'daraisa.
But that's all going in sim.
The bedika basically just makes
No. Yeah, correct. That's why Rav Elyashiv was choshish for that.
Bedika is even another suffix.
Bedika basically, to put it mildly.
makes a vada deraisa?
Of course, because now...
No, but that's what the point of the bedika is, because now I have a suffix deraisa, so let's just throw you into vada deraisa.
So what do you ask? You guess you're just being your tummy.
Bedika just
good. So that is the big question on this camp, and I still remember Rosh Weiss was there, so we're like, so you're just saying she's tummy? He's like, well probably. Now, but if not, this is the real answer. In Sugya, what's the answer? In Sugya, the answer is we have a chazaka, we have a reyesa. What's the reyesa? Woman is tahar now. We have a reyesa that there's a dot of blood that came from her. How do we put her back in her chazaka? If she were to do a bedika and it would be clean, now it would be machzik, her cheskas taira, and then she'd be tar. That's why it is answering up the question. That's why it's answering the question. It's very difficult. I understand. It's difficult. It's difficult in sugya. It's difficult in everything. And let's leave that for now.
There's no to say this is the bedika is nichnas b'seicha and the tissue is not. That's not
again, that's only with regard to the feeling of the bedika being that which masks hargasha. But we're now saying the feeling of atolos meiraglayim, the feeling of urinating masks hargasha. You're right that if a woman stam wipes herself, we don't have a suffix deraisa. We have a new question. Like Rabbi Flam asked, we have a new question. Now, what happened to vade migufa on the derabanan level? That's a great question. Meaning, all we're answering today, Siman Siba, only tells why it's not a daraisa. We still have to answer. We're going to learn Ksamim. And we still have to get to the bottom of this. Okay, Shkaya. So now we're in the world of Ksamim. But the end of the day is there's a dot of blood. We know this blood came from her, so she should be tummy. And that is a wonderful, wonderful question we're going to have to answer. I'll just give you a little bit just to open our brains. It probably has something to do with where she wiped. When you wipe yourself, she's not just going by samakam, she's going to be wiping what they call the sasayim as well, the lips of herself as well. She'll be wiping around as well. And even though we're going to learn that the Gemara says that and this is really now our psicha, our introduction to Simik of Sadi. Now we're just segueing perfectly in. Even though we know Oisa Makim is Baldik Mimachales, meaning there's no bugs inside our body, and there's no blood from anywhere else inside her body. But who's to say that this fasayim, that the lips, the vaginal lips around, who's to say that's perfectly clean? And therefore, when she wipes herself, because no one's wiping themselves with perfect precision inside, of course, you're just wiping around the area. So now that we see the dam, we do have what to be toilet on. We could say that maybe, and now as you realize that maybe was a shtickle leap of faith, and maybe that was a chiddush, which when we get to Ksamim, we're going to learn. So
according to Ramosha, it's a subject there, right? So she's running out.
Yes, so there are paiskim. I don't know if anyone ever was zeicha that if you call up and you ask that, okay, my wife was, everyone forgives himself, of course. My wife used the bathroom and by mistake she looked at the toilet paper. She feels very bad about it, and I already yelled at her about it. But at the end of the day, what's the story? And usually the end of the shayla is, and she already flushed. Interesting. Like what? If okay, whatever. Yeah, trauma. It's like when kids turn on lights on Shabbos by mistake. It's a regular no talk. It's like a similar zach. Like, oh, flush. Oh shoot, I flushed. But anyways, some rabbanim paiskim will ask, wait, was she rushing out of the bathroom? And you'll be like,
how much rushing?
That's a weird question to ask. Like, she used the toilet and wife, you rushing out of the bathroom? Oh, I used the bathroom. Oh, okay, she's mother. So that question goes to there. I asked a large place who's been passing for tens of years, and he said, "Yeah, you asked this question." I said, "In all your years, hundreds, maybe thousands of shaylas, did any woman ever say she was rushing?" He's like, "Of course not." So I said, "So why are we asking?" This is the way Ramosha. Okay,
people do rush. I don't understand.
No. When you'll see Ramosha, we'll see. It's mamish rushing. It's not. People rush, yes. People have to get
examples they gave.
like Ramosha's example. No. Ramosha's example is she finished bathroom, babies run, like babies crying, like mamish. There's a pot about to explode. That level.
Let's see.
Right. Let's just wrap up. I just wanted to do a quick 60-second sequence. A quick 60. Maybe we'll do. Usually I do 60 seconds. Maybe we'll give it a 90-second sequence. Probably I don't have my time on there, but I'll look at a clock over here. It's okay. It's okay. So let's do a quick. I got a clock up there. Perfect. Okay. Let's do a quick wrap up. A quick wrap up of today's shir. Which really wraps up Kuf Pei Gimel. Now, again, before I get to the wrap up, I'm admitting everyone's feelings that there's a lot of loose ends right now. There's a lot of loose ends. There is. Everyone's Hargashos. Everyone's Hargashos. There are a lot of loose ends. And all we're really answering today, Kuf Pei Gimel is really answering, like the Shach said, getting down to the Yisoid Shenimna Alav. And if you feel like you didn't even get there, okay, you have to spend time. You want to see the Sidrei Torah, like I mentioned, the Hargashos and Ramosha. These are lengthy tshuvas dealing with the Shaila of Daraisa. But what we're trying to deal with today is explaining the basic ideas of what is a Daraisa and what is not a Daraisa. And once we know perhaps what's not a Daraisa, then we could segue straight into Kuf Sadi, the world of Ksamim, and deal with it. But you have to realize that a bedika. Now, let's do a quick sikum, a quick chazara, and then we're going to go. The Eilim can do what they want. Either the Eilim could spend a little longer into Kuf Pei Gimel if the Eilim wants to see some of the stuff inside, or we could go into Kuf Sadi. Either way, we'll next is Kuf Sadi. So let's do a quick chazara about what we learned today. So basically, we learned today Kuf Pei Gimel. Kuf Pei Gimel is the Yisoid Shenivna Alav all of Hilchos Niddah, as the Shach taught us. This is the basis, the foundation of everything, and the foundation of everything is Niddah's Tama D'Oraisa. There's no difference between Penuya. There's no difference between a Nesuya. Even though the Gemara maybe sounds like there's a difference, there's absolutely no difference. If a woman is a Niddah, she is Tameh. Of course, a single girl cannot go to a mikvah, and a woman is going to be Tameh on the D'Oraisa level. And basically, the big question that we dealt with today, aside for pointing out this idea about a penuya not going to the mikvah. But the big question is, how do we deal with Hargashos bisman hazeh? The Gemara of Shmuel, the Gemara that we learned extensively of Amar Shmuel, Bodka karka ilam v'yashvelav, and she needs to have a Hargash. And we spoke out, there's basically two main mahalchin. There is a Sidrei Torah based on Rashi, a Taisus Rin, maybe a Rav Eliashiv, that learns that Hargasha is more of a simin l'davar, and therefore even without Hargasha, she can still be Tamid Daraisa. But the basic mahalch is like the Ramban and the Rashba, more al derech Taisvis, which is Hargashos, which is Ramosha, etc., which is that it's a siba, that of course you need to have Hargash to be Tamid Daraisa. So does that mean, and then that goes directly into, we spoke of what are the Hargashas, Yifis Davar Lach, and Psichos Pia Makar, etc., Kisis Meiraglaim. But then we get involved this, what are women nowadays? They're all saying they don't feel anything, they're all saying they don't feel anything. And the basic mahalach we're putting together, Hargashos and Ramosha, the Shevet Levi, and we're coming up with a general approach that yes, they don't feel their makar opening, and yes, they don't feel the flow coming out. But like Ramosha said, they know when they're becoming a niddah. And the Shevet Levi tells us perhaps if we were in a still world and we were more attuned to what's going on, they would feel it. And therefore, anytime she's going to have a real flow, Avada that is called Niddah Deraisa, and Avada the Tanai of Hargasha still is Chai V'Kayim, and she's going to be a Deraisa. And that's the reason why anytime you do a Bedika, if there's one dot of blood in that dot of blood makes her a Niddah Deraisa, because Dilma Hargasha, she went to the bathroom. That one dot of blood makes her a Niddah Deraisa. But if she might have waited a second or two, says Ramesha, then she's out of the world of Daraisa. And all the questions we're answering is any time that there's going to be blood, if it's a flow or Daraisa. If it's not a flow, then we're going to put ourselves directly into Simin Kov Sadi, into worlds of Ksamim, and B'siyat L'Shmaya. We'll pick it up from here.